Hello and welcome to the very last episode of Adventure Bike TV for 2016, and just for once I've managed to avoid filming this bit outside in the freezing cold. Not that we could say the same thing for this month's bike review. Oh no, not by a long shot. This month we went somewhere really special where we revisited the Honda Africa Twin.
You may well remember that earlier this year we tested Honda's brand new Africa Twin, and I rather liked it off-road, although I felt it left a little bit to be desired on the tarmac. So we wanted to give it a really thorough testing with a good long ride off the tarmac and a good long ride on the tarmac. And we even managed to get Grant and Susan from Horizons Unlimited to help us test it 2 up. And then we thought, well, where can we go and test it? Well, it is an Africa Twin, so we came to South Africa. This Honda Africa Twin test is a straight head-to-head between riding the manual and the DCT automatic versions in our most thorough review ever. We all know that Honda took the brave decision to stick with under 100 horsepower, as these bikes are designed with adventure trails in mind, more so than tarmac. Almost 19 litres of fuel gives a range of nearly 250 miles. This bike is ready for the big adventure. And it's skinny compared to a GS or a Triumph Explorer, weighing in at just 212 kilos dry. That's almost as light as the KTM Adventure R, but not quite. So what about the differences between the dual clutch transmission and the manual bikes? Well, DCT has been around a while now, going all the way back to the VFR 1200F in 2009. So Honda have had time to perfect it, and it's pretty flexible. You can ride it in full auto, it's your basic point and squirt. DCT does everything for you. Pop it into sport, and you'll get longer intervals between the gear changes, and you can override and change gears with the buttons on your left hand in those modes. Or there's the fully manual mode. Still no toes changing gears, but you do get control over when and where the bike changes gear, again using your left hand buttons. First order of business was tarmac and getting some real miles under our belts. So we joined a group of South African friends for a long distance trip. We'll show you more of this little adventure in future episodes, but for now, how was the bike on the largely smooth, grippy black stuff? Well, Honda have really positioned this bike as one to ride well off-piste, but they also make quite a song and dance about their low weight, low centre of gravity and low down torque, all contributing to, and these are their words, sprightly agility for the everyday commute. Well, if you work the engine hard, it is sprightly, but it's not thrilling. It handles very precisely, always going politely where you ask it to. It is fun, but when I jump briefly onto a GS Adventure for a comparison, I have more fun on the GS. And if I was left smiling but vaguely uninspired by the manual bike on the tarmac, I don't even want to talk about the DCT. Of course, and this may sound blindingly obvious, there is no left foot gear shifter or clutch lever, which is the weirdest thing when you immediately try and drop the bike into first gear with your foot, despite it already being in first because you engaged the drive mode. You do get a handbrake though. Think about it, with no clutch, you can't leave the bike in gear on a hill. The handbrake is where your clutch would normally be, but pushed well forward so you don't accidentally grab it, thinking it's something it's not. I haven't been brave enough yet just to see what would happen if I did. Easy and simple to ride does not make fun to ride. However, then we tested the bike on some basic off-road gravel trails and light sand. Now this bike was talking to me. I think it's the most natural feeling bike off-road in its class. And that is praise indeed. From the moment you get on it, the geometry feels right for anything off the tarmac. Start moving your weight around to shift your balance, change your grip, or move the bike around, and it is all there. I just couldn't get it anywhere close to its limits. We said at the start that this would be a thorough test. So now it's time to see what the bike is like two up, with the help of Grant and Susan from Horizons Unlimited.
So we've got Grant and Susan Johnson from Horizons Unlimited, who've been testing the Africa Twin 2-Up, so we're going to get their opinion. So guys, how do you find it 2-Up?
It works. I think it can be a good travel bike if you want to do a lot of off-road. I think the GS wins for on the pavement. It's a little more comfortable. The Africa Twin had better leg room, so if you've got long legs, the Africa Twin definitely wins there. I really noticed it. Overall, good, works, nice bike. I think the one we had wasn't set up well. The suspension wasn't right. It was much too harsh, much too much compression damping. I understand it's been changed and it's improved, so that would make a big improvement. Susan really noticed the harsh suspension, and I noticed it going over potholes, but modern tweaking and adjusting, it should be fine. Other than that, it ran like it was on rails, definitely very stable at speed. I think off-road for a good rider, you could fly. You could really have fun with it.
Susan, on the back, how did you find it?
As Grant said, the suspension was quite harsh, and so I found myself really kind of trying to hold myself off the seat because if you hit anything, especially on the off-road section, it hurt. And the seat, speaking of the seat, I haven't yet found a seat that I like, but that one was probably worse than the GS. It's so tiny. It's like all of these companies think that the person that sits on the back must be tinier, like a 10-year-old boy or something than the rider. Certainly not an adult female. So, but otherwise, yeah, it felt stable. I felt that too, that I wasn't as nervous on the off-road sections.
So if you were on a trip that was mainly tarmac and you were comparing the two bikes, assuming the suspension was all set up as you needed it,
Yeah.
if you had to choose between the two, between a GS and a Africa Twin 2-Up, what would you choose?
Primarily tarmac, definitely the GS.
And Susan?
Yeah, I would say so. There's a lot of hypotheticals there. I think to do a fair comparison, we'd need to have one set up properly.
Yeah. I'd like to have some more miles on it, more off-road, more tarmac on it. But I think Honda's hit the mark. They are aiming for a more off-road bike, and BMW is clearly a more on-road bike. And I think they're both on the mark for that. So it depends on what you're looking for.
It's a bit of a shame that the rain's been so heavy. And in fact, it has been properly heavy. I mean, it's been dry here for a long time, and the locals were saying the ground and the farmers really needed it, which is good. But the rain has been so heavy that in Johannesburg, a few hundred kilometres away, they've actually had rivers of brown floodwater down the highways and flights cancelled out the airport. And unfortunately, the effect it's had on the trails, where we were hoping to be absolutely able to blast it along, because when it's dry, it's hard packed and it's fine, but when it's wet, you get this mixture of kind of mud and silt and sand, and it's really hard to tell how solid the surface is, because the muddy stuff looks pretty much the same as the hard packed stuff. And really the only way you can tell is if you can see somebody that's been along here before you and see how deep the tire marks are that they've left. Even to the point where Grant and Susan have come off 2 or 3 times, and Grant hasn't come off in 20 years. Obviously they're riding 2 up, which makes it a lot more difficult, and we're on road tyres. But yeah, it's a real shame, because it would have been great to have just been able to hoon it along these roads, but got to be careful.
In all honesty, in these conditions with road tyres, it didn't matter what bike you were riding. It was simply down to skill, experience, and trying to find the least slippery path.
We have given the Africa Twins a really thorough testing, both on the tarmac and off-road, but we wanted to take it one step further. So we've come to the home of ADA and True Adventure Africa. Now the guys at ADA have got an incredible facility here, where they don't just do bike training, but they do car training, they do truck training, they've got a skid pan, and in fact last year the team from Iveco came and did their Dakar training here. To help us with the test, we've got Johan Gray, who you may remember seeing on his YouTube video where he rescued a calf from a canal whilst he was in the middle of a bike race. Now, what's the best way to describe Johan? Well, you remember Bob, our tame racing rider? Well, Johan's a bit like a South African version of him.
Okay, we're going down for the grinding exercise. It's very well, a good exercise for practicing mud. Your approach angle is very important. Looking at the end, get the back wheel to spin. Then we need to slow down, get the other one. Angle again, wait on the outside, keep looking to the end, get the back wheel spinning, and that's it. Okay, now we're going to do the same grinding exercise with the automatic or the dual clutch transmission system. Now what's key for this exercise is your clutch control to keep the back wheel spinning, which you don't have on the DCT model. So let's just see how much we can get right with this bike. And actually not bad. Okay, no clutch control, just throttle control, and it can actually sort of do it. That's a good start.
To say it's hard
Okay, so how did it go? What bike do you choose in the end, the DCT or the manual?
Oh, definitely the manual. It's so much easier to ride for me. More control as well. And I need control because I'm not very good off-road. So.
Okay, but the DCT didn't do too bad in the end.
No. In the hands of an expert, it's not too bad.
Okay, so we need to find that person.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we take these two bikes for a race, how do you think that will go? What is your sort of bet for laps?
Ooh, okay. So if I do 2 laps, and we'll see how many laps you can do in the same time, I guess you might do an extra 1 or an extra 2 to mine.
With me on the clutch bike?
No, I think I'll go on the clutch bike.
Oh, okay, so I'll be on the DCT.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll be able to do about 10 for 1.
That sounds like a challenge then.
Let's do it.
Okay. So your challenge was you could do 10 laps to my 2. You did 3. So technically I won.
I think if you look at it that way, it could be like that. But in the end, it was quite key for me to understand how you're riding your riding style. And somewhere my secret weapon and I miscommunicated when she was supposed to have distracted you.
Okay.
But then also, we did 2 up for most of the race in any case.
Whatever happens, you beat me hands down on the flat race. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's crunch time. What did I think of the bikes? Now we've given them a really thorough testing on the road in horrendous rainy conditions as well as dry, off-road in a variety of gravel, mud, boulders, uphill and downhill. We've even had a professional rider come and test them with us. So let's start with the automatic, the DCT. So you can ride it fully automatic, you can ride it semi-automatic, so you do have some control if you want to. I think there is a place for it because there will be riders who want to ride an automatic bike. I think my wife included. However, I found it boring and everybody else who's tried it found it boring. So, there is a place for it, and according to the guys at Honda, they are selling lots of them, a lot more than I thought. However, it doesn't engage. It really, really does not engage me. It doesn't excite me. It goes, and that's about all I can say about it. So, to the manual Africa Twin. From the moment you get on this bike, you know it is a bike built to go off-road. And I loved it off-road. And I felt in complete control of it, even when I flipped it in the mud, because it is a manual. It is easy to ride. It feels completely in the right position. However, and it's still the same however I had when I first tested it, as a bike to go on the tarmac, it's pretty good, but I wouldn't say it's great. You've really got to work the gearbox to get it moving around the corners. It does handle well, but it still feels just a little bit underpowered. So, the question is, would I have either of these 2 bikes in my garage? Well, the DCT is easy, not a chance. The manual, if I was going to go on a trip that was 70% off-road, just like the bike that's built to go 70% off-road, yes, I would.
Honda say that the CRF 1000L Africa Twin is the return of a legend. There is no doubt that it has inherited the spirit of those old Dakar Rally focused machines. It is undoubtedly a very, very good bike. It wears the mantle and carries the torch, just like it was designed to do. Will it be a legend? Ask me again in a few years' time.
Well, there you go. I'm not sure what I enjoyed most, being in Africa or riding in the Africa Twin. It was a tough call. Now, it's been that time of year again. It's the NEC Live, and unfortunately, this year I couldn't make it. So we sent Tom along.
So I'm at the bike show with the NEC in Birmingham. Sadly, Graham couldn't make it, so we asked Nathan. Nathan's actually a bit busy here, so we'll find out more about that later. So you're stuck with me, and I'm going to very, very quickly take you through some of the most interesting bikes for the adventure market at this year's show. The downside of bike shows is that all you have to go on are the looks and what the bump says. You can never really tell what the bikes are like until you actually ride them. But first impressions and all that, so here are my first impressions. Let's start with the concept everybody is talking about, Yamaha's T7. With the 660 Tenere sadly no longer in production, this concept is set to replace it in 2018. The bike looks amazing. It has the highly acclaimed 700cc CP2 engine, and it looks well equipped. Let's just hope that the production model lives up to this amazing concept. Now over to Triumph, where there's nothing particularly new, but they have made an effort to catch people's eye. First, it's the tank of a bike they're calling the Extreme Explorer, and then the Tiger 800, which they fitted with a studded tyre on the rear and a ski on the front. Definitely eye-catching, but maybe not that practical. One thing is clear, someone at Triumph has a fetish for lights. SWM have their 650 Super Dual. It looks great, and if it performs like their standard 650, it will be a great bike. Watch this space as we'll have it reviewed soon. Now, before I get onto a bike that has been hotly anticipated and ultimately was a disappointment for me, let's catch up with Nathan.
So I'm occasional presenter Nathan Millward here at NEC again for another 9 days. Launched what might be a one-off, it might be more regular, getting into adventure. It's just stories to help encourage and inspire and give advice to people to do their own trips. And it's more about manageable trips. So it's not saying you've got to go around the world or quit your job. It's saying, you know, get out on a weekend, ride to Wales, ride to Scotland. If you've got a week off, do the Alps. If you've got a bit longer, maybe consider Morocco. But it's much more about the manageable adventure and just not trying to sell you a new bike or anything. It's just saying get out there, because you know I'm trying to get. I think collectively we're just trying to get more people out riding and doing things and seeing things and meeting people. So that's what I'm doing. I printed 20,000. I can't say I've got rid of them all yet, but they're free. So after the show, at the end, maybe Tom can run a little link at the bottom of this where you can contact me and I can post one out to you. Obviously you'll have to cover cost of postage, but yeah, so it's just loads of reading material.
So I couldn't wait to see the Royal Enfield Himalayan, but what a disappointment. It looks great and to sit on feels great, but then you try standing up and its one massive flaw is apparent. To get the bike approved in the European market, they had to make some changes, so the man on the stand told me, and one of these was to add an ABS system. To do this, they had to widen the frame, and this is the problem. When you stand up, your calves are pushed outwards, and the only way to stay on the pegs is to turn your feet inwards, making it an awful standing position. What a massive shame. Now onto a bike which got my juices flowing, the new KTM 1290 Super Adventure S. I know this is the one Graham was desperate to see, and it did not disappoint. The bike is brimming with tech, and the dash looks more like an iPod than anything you'd normally expect to see. With this much tech, it could be argued that you might want to give the bike a year just to make sure any technical gremlins can be sorted out. But I suspect many, including Graham, won't be able to wait that long. There were also some smaller engine adventure bikes entering the market, with BMW, Suzuki and Honda all bringing new bikes to the table. BMW were there with their new G310 GS. This new GS I'm sure will prove very popular, as its on-the-road price is just £4,900. Suzuki has its V-Strom 250, which looks great from the side, but the headlight gives the front view a look that you're either going to love or hate. No price yet either. Now Honda have a great bike that I will be getting, the CRF 250 Rally. This bike looks straight out of the Dakar, and I'm sure is going to be a fantastic green lane beast. This will be my bike for the next dawn to dusk. I am in love. Now, speaking of Honda, they had another adventure bike at the show. Well, I say adventure bike, it's a scooter really. It's the Honda XADV. And you know what? It's not that bad. I think the UK market may struggle to get its head around the concept, but the rest of Europe, this bike is going to do really, really well.
So that was some of the highlights from Motorcycle Live this year, hopefully showing you what you'll be riding next year.
Well, thank you for covering for me, Tom, and you always said to me that you don't like being in front of the camera, you little liar. Well, last month we were back to our customary positions of Tom behind the camera and me in front of it when we visited Horizons Unlimited South Africa.
At Adventure Bike TV, we have been lucky enough to go to a number of Horizons Unlimited events in the UK. But this year, we wanted to go somewhere a bit more exotic. So we came to Horizons Unlimited South Africa!
For South Africa, Cobus Fourie sent us an email and said, we'd like to have a travelers meeting in South Africa, and I have a venue. Cobus owns the Elgro River Lodge in Potchefstroom, or near Potchefstroom. Fantastic location, perfect for a venue, and he's an amazing host. So it's still small, but it's growing, and there's lots of very passionate people. They love it, so it's working really well.
Almost as soon as I arrived, it was time to go on a ride out, which I was rather excited about. I mean, who wouldn't be when you have the opportunity to ride in a game park alongside zebra and other animals? Were great fun too. Hard-packed mud with just a thin layer of sand on top. Riding on this was so much fun. So the rain came, seemingly out of nowhere. The riding slowed to a crawl and bikes started to go down. So as an introduction to riding in Africa, or South Africa, compared to riding in North Africa or West Africa, I would say that's a fairly broad spectrum of riding conditions. Started in sort of cloudy sunshine, and then within 20 minutes we had a tropical storm, and what was a fairly kind of compacted, hard sand and gravel track turned into a sandy swamp, which was interesting. I think only one guy went down, which is pretty good, but it was in places that was really slippery, really slippery. Sadly, the heavy rain persisted for the rest of the day, but adventurers in South Africa are no different to the rest of the world. the Horizons Unlimited spirit is strong and nothing was cancelled. Talks and workshops all continued, although sometimes with a change of location to avoid the deep puddles.
One of the many reasons why so many people come to the Horizons Unlimited hub events isn't just because they can meet other like-minded motorcyclists, and it's not just because they can drink some beer in the evenings and do some great rides. It's because there is so much to learn at these events. And for example, we've got Grant Johnson behind me who's talking about tyre changes. And it's not just about tyre changes, they go into a huge amount of detail about how different tyres react under different conditions and different temperatures, how you can use different tyres with different rims, which ones work with tubeless, which ones work with tube tyres. And of course they do get into how do you deal with a tyre when it's blown or it's come off the rim or anything like that. And they even go into details such as how can you stuff your tyre with grass or your underwear just to make sure you can get back to safety. And when you look at the faces of the people here, they are really loving it. I've had quite a big honour paid for me actually. I'm going to be the keynote speaker at the hub event today, and there's a lot of people that I'm going to be following who've done a lot of preparation. We've got kit laid out in here where we've had the talks about camping. I've just been watching the guys outside doing talks about bike control, and I'll be talking about my med trip that I did back in 2010. Luckily, I do enjoy doing the talking, and just waiting for the audience to turn up. After a hard day of riding, of lectures and listening to fabulously interesting people doing their talks, one of the things that is common across all the hub events is a fabulous social in the evening. And South Africa is no different. But here, as well as the wonderful company, the food is just incredible. In addition to the amazing company, the great riding and the fabulous food, the storms here are utterly epic.
The next morning, the sky had cleared, and there was another day packed with talks and shows, and for me, some slow riding skills.
Don't come. At least I didn't come last. This morning we're on the slow skills course put together by the same guys that we were doing the practice on the pavement, but now we're on wet, muddy grass. We're putting into practice all the things that we were doing, so all the body positioning, clutch control. I was lucky because my bike has already got its tyres down to 0.3 bar, which on road tyres makes a huge difference on the grass and the mud.
I was rather proud of myself. Although I didn't set the fastest outright pace, I had by far the fewest feet down errors. If the organisers counted them as penalties, I would have won by a country mile. However, I was thoroughly put in my place when Johan, the instructor, went around the course 2 up without putting a foot down and still beat my time. Reality check delivered and understood.
Of course, all good things must come to an end, and sadly we're at the end of our weekend with Horizons Unlimited South Africa. But as with every single Horizons event, we've met wonderful friendly people, made new friends, seen some great demonstrations and learnt a hell of a lot. But you know, one of the things that I found most humbling was the stories from the local people about travelling just in this country. There is so much diversity here and so much to see. It really is incredibly humbling. But sadly, it is the end and we have to go home.
We want to invite anybody that's doing Africa to plan to be in South Africa for the Travellers meeting.
That was an absolutely extraordinary event. Such incredible hospitality, wonderful people. Now it's time for a break.
We at the Adventure Bike Shop have used our experience from our own halfway around the world and back travels. To put together a range of products that we think are top quality, will last you a trip. Brands we know and trust, products we've used ourselves. Dumb products and what am I going to say? Welcome to the Adventure Bike Shop. This is now getting good.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of
Adventure Bike TV.
Welcome back. Now it's Under the Visor with Anne and Anthony Speed.
James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.
I'm Anne and
I'm Anthony.
And we are known as the Two Slow Speeds because there are two of us. We are slow and our name is Speed.
We set off in June 2014 on a round-the-world trip which took us 15 months. Took us out through Europe, Russia, down through the Stans, across Iran, India to Southeast Asia. And then, because we couldn't take the bikes back to Australia, we shipped them to Santiago in Chile and then rode up through South America, Central America, North America and back to the UK.
I suddenly had a feeling that we should spend some time with our families. My parents are in their early 90s, Anthony's mum was ageing, and I had this strong feeling that we should go back and spend some time there. So we thought, okay, let's pack up and go to Europe for 9 months. And then we just got a single ticket to Europe with no return. And we're trying to think of how we'd get back to Australia, and somehow we thought of motorbikes. And we thought, well, we could go back on motorbikes for some reason. We still, to this day, cannot remember whose idea it was.
Yeah, so nobody can take the credit, nobody can take the blame. We started at the Birmingham Motorcycle Show with 2 pairs of motorcycle boots, because one of the challenges when you decide to do around the world or go back to Australia when you're somewhere else, you don't have anything, so you have to completely equip yourself. We bought 2 motorbikes, equipped them, prepared to set off to Australia, and then found we couldn't take the bikes back to Australia. We decided to choose 2 identical bikes to make both riding for both of us possible on either bike and reduce spares and parts that we might need to take. There were not too many bikes in the sort of frame we were looking for, so we ended up trying the Triumph and the BMW, so the Triumph 800 and the BMW 7800s, and we settled on the F700 GS.
Yes, the reason for that was they were a bit lower for me. I wanted to go, I knew we'd be doing some off-road, which I'm not that comfortable with, so I felt that I needed both feet on the ground. So the F700 GS turned out to be the lowest one. I found it very comfortable. I bought some risers just to bring the handlebars a bit closer, and it was a perfect setup for me.
The memory we have is of the people we met. I think that's one of the great things about travel, that we hear so many stories, but when you get to meet the people in the countries, the friendships we've made that continue to this day in a number of countries that we want to go back to, that for us is the one thing that stands out. There's beautiful scenery, there's great riding, we have some roads we would love to go back and do, but at the end of the day, if we have to pick one thing, it's the people.
And people did things for us, helped us along the way, knowing full well that we had absolutely no way of ever being able to repay them. It was purely generosity of heart, and that's really what touched us. Oh, even tiny things like inviting us in a petrol station in Kazakhstan, I think it was. He invited us in to his petrol station, huge open space. There was a table, there was just the springs of a bed. He found plastic chairs. He brought a watermelon, broke it in two, cut it up with a knife. He found 2 mugs, which he cleaned with his fingers, and gave us a cup of tea, and brought us a piece of bread that he'd baked that morning, and we spent an hour there chatting with him. He didn't speak English. I understood a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of Russian, but we spent an hour chatting. And it was pure generosity and love on his part. And for why, you know?
We found we're more disconnected in the 4x4 from our environment and from people. With the bike, you're exposed to the elements, you're part of the environment. When you're in a vehicle, you have windows, you have air conditioning, you're separated.
You don't talk to the locals as much because you are separated. And we both felt when we've got the luxury of the air conditioning because we've travelled in 40-degree heat, so that's been nice. But we've really missed that connection with. We don't feel the wind in the hair, even though it's hot. But the connection with the people is what we're missing the most.
We were riding. We did it our first after returning to riding after some 30 years. We did a organised trip on Royal Enfield, starting in India, going through all the way through Bhutan and back into India. And I had been unwell with a chest infection on about the 5th day. While riding down this mountain pass, my chest infection got a lot worse. And it continued to trouble me for about 10 days, but we continued the journey, went back to Australia, I went to work, I went to see my GP to get some antibiotics for my chest infection. But his diagnostic things were a lot better, and he determined that, along with a specialist the next day, that I'd had a heart attack, I had a blocked artery, and required a quadruple bypass 3 days later.
James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.
Thank you very much to Anne and Anthony for sharing their stories. Now, it's time for Top Tech.
Hi, I'm Dawn and welcome to this month's Top Tech. On this month's show, we have the MSR Pocket Rocket. So the Pocket Rocket stove is perfect for when you're out on your adventures on the motorbike. It fits in your panniers without taking up hardly any space, and it's perfect for when you want to just stop for a quick brew or when you want to make a big meal. Right, let's get the stove out of the box. It's quite easy to open up. It's just side opening. Top comes open like that. Inside, you've got the instructions manual in lots of different languages, in case you can speak many languages. Then we'll just take this out. Not too much packaging, so it's quite good. Just falls apart easily. Pop that back in the box, and there's the MSR stove in a tidy little case. So we're going to get the stove out of this great little plastic case that it comes in. A little bit fiddly, but give it a squeeze and the top pops off nicely. So as you can see, inside there it's nice and compact. Great little bit of engineering on this stove. Get rid of that bit of paper, don't really need that. It's a simple stove, so there's hardly anything to go wrong on there. 3 little legs that pop open. On the top, you've got the windshield, which allows the wind to be blowing from one direction, but your burner still going really strong on the other 2 sides. So it works really efficiently. It's got a great size regulator on it, so when it's a cold day and you really don't want to take your gloves off, that's fine, you can still use it with ease. Okay, to make it work, you need a gas canister. It's got a screw thread on this, so it will fit with every screw threaded gas canisters, which are the most popular in the world. You can get them anywhere. So the stove is dead easy to fit onto the canister. It's literally screws on and forms a nice tight seal. The canister itself forms your base. As long as you've got a nice flat surface that you're putting it on, it's not going to fall over. Just open the legs back out again, and you can see how any pan that you use sits nicely on the top. To light your stove, you can use any lighting device. You could use a flint, or you could use your lighter, matches, whatever you're using. Just turn the regulator, light it, and it ignites. So when you've finished with your stove, it's dead easy. You just close up the legs, unscrew the bottle from the stove, and it's self-sealing, so when you're storing this away, you don't have to worry about any gas escaping. And then you just grab your stove, pop it back in its little case, fits in nice and tight, top on, pack up, and away you go. So the burn time on the Pocket Rocket is approximately 60 minutes on full chat. The boil time for 1 litre of water is only 3.5 minutes. The weight of the stove is a minimal 3 ounces. The bike's not going to notice that, so you can have an extra Mars bar. As always, you can win this month's Top Tech products, the Pocket Rocket, by answering the following simple question. How long does it take the Pocket Rocket stove to boil a litre of water? Is it A, 3 minutes, B, 3.5 minutes, C, 4 minutes, or D, 4.5 minutes? To enter, just go onto the website Adventure Bike TV and click on the competition link. Thanks for watching. My name's Dawn from Cotswold Outdoor, and I'll see you on next month's Top Tech.
Now it's time for our regular visit to the Travel Journal and part 2 of Ride 50 at 50.
Imagine what this is like when it's warm.
Good morning!
We rode yesterday from Ocean City in Maryland. We had to go around the Beltway of Washington, a road that's slightly M25 but full of bad drivers. We got stuck in traffic and rain for about 15 miles, solid traffic. You're not allowed to go down either side of the cars here, so we were just sitting.
everything's supposed to take 5 hours. That's what we planned on. And of course, we're finding out that 5 hours riding, what that turns into practically is more like 8 hours on the road.
This morning when I drew the curtains, I was really heartened by seeing quite a lot of sunshine.
It was beautiful, a lovely sunrise, and we went out with optimism of the day ahead.
Yeah.
And it didn't last long. We got very, very wet. We put our waterproofs on. I think it cleared up and we took them off. We had to put them on again a few times.
Yeah, it was shit, actually. It was bollocks.
Yeah, it was rubbish. Oh, you're trying to get me to swear?
You're still not swearing. Yeah, that's for the bloopers. Right?
My mum might watch this.
Oh, okay. All right. It was jolly. It's bad, rubbish.
Yes,
it was
terrible.
Anyway, so we were planning to get today to MacArthur in Ohio, which was a total of only about 275 miles, which is
doable.
About our average day, what we should be doing in a day.
Sure.
And we nearly made it, but you know what? We thought,
we're a bit short. We're not that far short, are we?
I think we're probably only about 20 minutes, half an hour away, but it was the right time to stop. How do you think about the dynamic of us?
Very well. We
riding together.
We work well together. We integrate very well. We swap positions. So David likes it back door, as you're probably aware. We do swap that occasionally, and Adrian's been in front. I've been in front. The traffic's been pretty good today, actually, although the weather's been bad.
Right. I was a bit disappointed because those first twisty roads were really nice.
They were beautiful.
And then we got stuck on that.
It was kind of dual carriageway.
Yeah, like a French motorway we were talking about. It felt like a French motorway.
Yeah, it was going on forever. The speed limit was up to a maximum of 65. We were touching 70. We didn't
can't say that.
We didn't want to get
nicked,
flashed or anything. But
tomorrow.
Right.
Do you know where we're going?
No, I've got no idea. I'll hold that.
Hold that. I'll get my book.
Yeah.
David.
Yes. Tomorrow we're going somewhere else, which is west, obviously. Go west. I think I know a song about that, but I'm not going to sing.
Okay, so it was Winchester to MacArthur, which we were a bit short. So we're going to go tomorrow to Seymour.
Okay, seen less.
Yeah, Indiana.
But we set off at 8:30 this morning. I think if we try and do the same tomorrow, that's a good time to start if we're all up and ready to go.
That's the thing, it's getting up. And just fingers crossed the weather's going to be better tomorrow than we've got to catch a break sooner or later.
I'm not optimistic because I saw the weather report and they've got thunderstorms, I think, tomorrow afternoon.
There's a surprise.
Well, it's wind tomorrow as well. The temperatures are going to be no higher than 60. Anyway, that could change, so we'll see.
Oh my goodness, we're in St. Louis at our ball game. It's the St. Louis thingies. Cardinals. It's the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates. We've got beer, we've had hot dogs. Fantastic. Great fun. Go Cardinals!
Hope you enjoyed Ride 50 at 50. This of course is the last episode until 2017, so have an absolutely fabulous Christmas and we'll see you next year.